So the respiratory system is also going to adapt to exercise. So the aerobic adaptations would be that there will be a slight increase in total lung capacity and the vital capacity. There would be a decrease in residual volume, and tidal volume would increase during maximal exercise. Pulmonary ventilation during maximum exercise levels would increase due to an increase in tidal volume. Pulmonary diffusion at rest and in submaximal exercise would stay the same, but during maximal exercise, pulmonary diffusion rates would increase, and this is because of increased circulation of blood around the body and increased ventilation, so you're getting more air into your lungs, which would be caused by there being more alveoli involved during maximal exercise, because there's more air in your lungs, so more alveoli are going to be diffusing more oxygen into the blood. Also, there would be an increased AVO2 difference, particularly during maximal exercise, and there'd be an increase in minute ventilation because of the efficiency of the respiratory muscles. There would be a slight increase in resting lung volumes, so all the tidal volume, total lung capacity, vital capacity would all increase slightly at rest. There would be an increase in the oxygen diffusion rate during exercise because there's more blood circulating around the body, and there's more air coming into the lungs, so you've got more air can diffuse at one time. Also, there'll be an increase in VO2 max, and the exercise would slow down, a decline in VO2 max as you get older and become more unfit. Also, aerobic capacity will remain higher than it otherwise would be in an older person, and it will help with your functional lifestyle and stop you feeling as tired. The neuromuscular system, they're slow oxidative fibres. Their aerobic training will cause hypertrophy to happen in these fibres, but they will only grow by up to 22% of their original size. Myoglobin levels will increase, meaning that there's more O2 available to the oxygen available to the muscles at any one time, which will mean that muscular endurance will improve because there's more oxygen to be used by the muscles to resynthesize ATP. And the number of mitochondria will increase, meaning that the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain can be happening in more places at the same time. So there's more energy being produced at once, so more ATP can be resynthesized, and this will then improve muscular endurance. The fast glycolytic fibres will get bigger, thicker and stronger, and their mass will increase, which means that the force of a contraction will be greater, and then muscular strength is then improved, as that's muscle hypertrophy of the fast glycolytic fibres. Tendon strength will increase, meaning that tendon injuries are less likely to occur, and muscle contractions can be stronger due to the tendons being able to be put under more stress because they're that much stronger. And also the speed of neural pathways would increase, meaning that reactions to a stimulus will be quicker, and that signal speed going from the brain to the muscles will increase and therefore cause a decrease in reaction time. So the anaerobic adaptations, they're muscle hypertrophy of the fast glycolytic fibres increases the cross-sectional area of the existing fibres by increasing the muscle mass, which increases the proportion of muscle to body fat mass of fast twitch fibres. And also there will be hyperplasia, which means that the number of fast glycolytic fibres will increase, and you'll have more fast glycolytic fibres and fast glycolytic motor units to recruit and use during exercise. Also, and this all results in mesomorphy. There will be an increased rate of response of the CNS, so the central nervous system will respond to a stimulus quicker, and the signals will get down the neurons to the muscles a lot quicker. And then there's the because you've got more muscle fibres because of the hyperplasia, there will be a recruitment of additional fast glycolytic fibre motor units to be used during exercise, and the coordination of fast glycolytic fibre motor units will improve, and the muscle group as a whole will become more efficient. And proprioceptors become more responsive and send feedback to the spinal cord and to the CNS quicker than they would before the exercise. So that's proprioceptors like muscle spindles and Golgi tendons. This is a table showing the data from a group who carried out Wingate tests. So after a period of anaerobic, this is before any training had happened, so after a period of anaerobic training, peak power output would, so this is the column next to the names, so these values would all increase after a period of anaerobic training. Because of muscle hypertrophy, so the fast glycolytic fibres would get bigger and stronger and would be able to generate more force, which would cause peak power output to rise. Fatigue index, which is the fourth column from the left, would decrease because its fatigue index is a percentage value of how much the athlete decreased from their peak power to the end of the test. So this would decrease due to the muscles becoming more resistant to lactic acid, and the lactate threshold and OBLA will both happen at higher blood lactate levels after a period of training than they would before that. However, the blood lactate, which is the column on the right hand side, would only be slightly lower because the PC stores will have increased, so the body will be able to use the ATP PC system for longer, which will mean that the lactic acid system is working for less time and less lactic acid will be produced. So the blood lactate levels and values would be slightly lower. The energy systems would adapt to a period of aerobic or anaerobic training. So there will be more mitochondria in the slow oxidative fibres, which means that more aerobic respiration can happen, which will mean that the muscle fibres become more efficient and can work for a longer period of time. Also, glycogen stores in the muscles and in the muscle fibres will increase, meaning that there is more glycogen readily available for the muscles to use. Myoglobin levels will increase, meaning that oxygen delivery to the mitochondria is increased, which in turn means that more aerobic respiration can happen. More free fatty acids will be mobilized and can be used to produce energy, and will be used as the dominant fuel after more than they were before the period of training. So before the period of training, you might have to be working for an hour and a half. You might have to be working aerobically for an hour and a half before free fatty acids became the dominant fuel. Whereas after the training, you might only have to work for 45 minutes, and then the free fatty acids would become the dominant fuel. The number of aerobic and anaerobic enzymes will increase, which would mean that more respiration can happen at any one time. There is a delay to the lactate threshold and OBLA, and an increase in lactic acid tolerance, which enables an athlete to work anaerobically for longer and at a higher intensity. There will be an increase in VO2 max, and the lactate threshold will occur at a higher percentage of the VO2 max after a period of training than it would before the training. And this is because of a greater ability to clear lactate from the muscles, and an increase in skeletal muscle enzymes which help break down lactic acid. There would be a decreased respiratory exchange ratio, which is the ratio of carbon dioxide released to oxygen consumed, and this is because of a higher utilization or a higher use of fatty acids instead of carbohydrates, and carbohydrates like glycogen and glucose. So there would be an increase resting metabolic rate and an increase in anaerobic respiration. This is a VO2, the data from VO2, the RPE, so the rate of perceived exertion data from a VO2 max test. And if the test was redone after the training, then the RPE values would be lower, and the participant would be able to continue running for longer at increasingly higher speeds, because they would have an increased VO2 max. So they would be using less of their VO2 max at the same speeds, so they would be finding the test easier, and they'll be able to keep working for longer. This graph shows blood lactate and heart rate data when running on a treadmill at increasing speeds. The lower line with the diamonds and the values on it is the line representing the participant's blood lactate. So after a period of lactate threshold training, the line would shift to the right, and the athlete would be able to run faster before the blood lactate values started to rise, and will be able to continue for longer while they rise before they reach the lactate threshold, and then there would be a bigger gap between the lactate threshold and OBLA, because OBLA would also then occur at a higher blood lactate value. So this is a graph showing the results of an athlete's Wingate test before and after a period of training. The green line is the pre-training graph, and the blue line is the results from after the training. The biggest difference is that the blue line reaches a much higher peak power output, so it gets to a much higher point. Its highest point is much higher than the green line, and over the 30 seconds that the test takes, it decreases much slower, at a much slower rate, and it decreases much less than the pre-training test. And this is called the fatigue index, and it's measured in a percentage. So the fatigue index would be lower in the test after the training.